Yesterday, we talked about love as a feeling, and today we're really getting into what love is. We're talking about love as an action. Remember, this was research and based on cultural understandings and definitions of what love truly is, as well as what is biblical. So, I hope that this helps you in your own marriage and to love your spouse better, to become a super couple yourself. If you like what you're hearing, please make sure always to like and share and subscribe. And if you feel so inclined, I'd be honored to receive any donation of any size. Just click on the link below, buymeacoffee.com. Until then, let's get into the next chapter, which says love as an action. Love burns calories. Love is something we do. If we once before chose to love another human being, it's wholly possible to choose to love that same human being a second time, and a third, and a fourth, or even forever. Let me share with you a story to help explain. I used to work with a man named Carl. When I first met Carl, he began to talk about this woman who was relatively well known and acclaimed opera singer. We were planning an event, and he talked about how awesome she was and how we should get her to perform at our event in order to attract audiences. He was quite persistent, and every time I heard him speak in a professional setting, he always find some way to introduce Patty's name into the conversation, as if it were killing him to go too long without talking about this woman. But Carl's a private man, and thus it took me nearly a year later to realize that the singer was his ex-wife, and that he and she had struck up a new and improved relationship and were beginning to date again. Another year passed, and I bumped into Carl again, whereupon I discovered that he and his ex-wife were now newlyweds again. When questioned about the relationship, he blushed and smiled from ear to ear like most any other young couple wed for the first time. So what happened? How could two people who once shared so much disdain for one another that they chose to divorce rather than to have to look at, talk to, or live with each other, all of a sudden desire to be in each other's lives so intimately that they wanted to remarry and share every moment of every day with each other? Did the gods of love and fate decide to play some kind of sick joke on these two lovers by causing them to fall into love, out of love, back into love again, beyond their control, like two puppets on a fateful tether? Well, if one adheres to the concept of soulmates being destined for one another, then this concept would seem to hold some credence. Well, they just got lucky and then unlucky and then lucky again. Phew, quite the little prankster, that guy Cupid. Patty and Carl married at 20 and 23, respectively, and felt beyond blessed in their lives. However, 3 short years later, they divorced. What happened to turn them from, I can't wait to spend every single day for the rest of my life with you, to, I no longer can stand to be in the same house as you? Did each of them change and become different people, as so many of us claim when we leave our spouses? Or did their perceptions change? Now, so many years have passed, neither of them is able to recall with clarity what exactly it was that they were saying to each other and how they were saying it. Excuse me, which is probably good. But they are clearly now seeing and saying things differently. Undoubtedly, there is great respect for one another. They esteem the other in ways they likely did not before or took for granted. 3 years after they remarried, I sat in Carl's office to discuss some business issues, and he regularly found ways to mention how talented his wife was, and just how good she was, and how she's traveled the world because of her beautiful voice. His esteem for her was clearly evident. Further, to look at the two of them gushing when they interact is to think that they're again school children in love. But they're not. They are in their 60s and had been divorced for nearly 4 decades before they began once again to communicate on a more loving and respectful manner. They began to reconnect. When we first meet our spouses, something is taking place. Action. Words that are said, looks that are given, actions that take place, such as doors being held, flowers being purchased, cards being sent, Time is being spent together at car shows, boat shows, and whatever other shows they want to go to. Listening, laughing, sharing, playing, discussing, etc. See, all of those were verbs. When my husband and I first got together, I went with him to a car show and a boat show. I went camping with him in this cold, dark, scary forest with nary a blow dryer, electrical outlet, or a tube of lipstick to be found. That was traumatic, I know. No matter what it was, if he was inviting me, I was saying yes. But likewise, Dan went with me to the mall, to my favorite nightclub where I loved to dance, and worse yet, to the prom. You see, I was 18 years old and still a senior in high school, and he hates the prom. He hates his own prom. He didn't even go, but he went to mine. My husband hates dancing, hates crowds, hates noises, unless it's the revving of a loud engine blowing carbon. I learned that from him. That was the noise that turned him on. And my husband can't stand being the center of attention. And what makes all this more charmingly painful for him is that I was crowned prom princess at prom. So he didn't know this in advance, which meant that Dan had to dance with me under a spotlight in front of 200 people he did not know at a venue at which he did not want to be, and all the while wearing a tuxedo he did not want to wear, with cameras photographing the event, lest he somehow bury it way too deep in the recesses of his brain to ever retrieve it again. I bring this up to magnify one extremely important component of falling in and falling out, or staying in love. We begin to love, you know the verb, those whose actions make us feel good. Their actions make us feel loved or respected or appreciated or in some way the center of their world. Dan's actions that day and weeks leading up to it were all about me. Every single action evidenced the fact that I had been on his mind consistently. What color is your dress? He needed to order just the perfect bouquet. I have planned a surprise for you next week. Wow, a significant portion of his brain space and time had been devoted to me. How incredibly attractive. I mean, these were clearly actions that my young lover undertook on my account. He did something for me. As a result, I felt absolutely loved. Ken wasn't thinking about hunting or work or the Green Bay Packers, and that's a tough one. He was thinking about me. His actions confirmed that I was the center of his world, and I loved it. I saw a TV show today that featured a rock star on stage. Around her perimeter were thousands of adoring fans looking up at her, screaming her name, trying to touch her, smiling because they got to be closer to her than did any others. And from its appearance, most would have sacrificed their right arms to get on stage and actually touch her. How do you think this woman felt being adored by thousands of fans? Pretty good, I would think. Yes, I'm certain she still had her needs for privacy, quiet time, and any other activities she chooses to do alone or with a chosen few loved ones. If you asked this rock star if she felt loved, desired, pretty, talented, envied, or whatever positive emotions one can think of in these moments, she'd likely say, unquestionably, yes. And don't get too sidetracked thinking, well, I'd hate to be on stage or at the center of attention, as my husband would definitely say. But that's not the point. The point is, we humans desire to be loved and are designed to be loved, and our selfish human nature would be much more comforted knowing we are loved, desired, and esteemed in some way than it would if it felt lonely, unloved, unappreciated, and unnoticed. Through the actions of those many others making her the center of their world for that time, this woman on stage received their byproduct of good feelings. And those feelings are intoxicating. So what about that newlywed couple at the baseball game at the beginning of the chapter? Remember the one I talked about 3 videos ago, where the husband surprised the woman and she was guessing some quiz at the baseball game, and out he pops. He surprised her coming home from deployment, and everyone wanted to be who they were, and I asked, were they in love? That couple. So what about them? All couples experience some good feelings at the onset of their relationship, or they wouldn't have married. So did you, even if you've since forgotten or don't want to admit it because you're currently in a troubled relationship. Now, clearly, this couple at the baseball game was experiencing some loving feelings too, because at that moment, he was making her the center of his world. But does he do this all the time? And will they constantly love one another? Do they sometimes experience moments of unloving behaviors too? By the looks on their faces and the tears shed, the couple was experiencing some very loving feelings as they stood in front of the stadium full of onlookers. Most would agree this couple was in love at that time. And it is very likely there were numerous onlookers wishing they were as in love as this couple as well. I would have had those thoughts during my troubled years. Actually, I had them regularly. I'd think, no, that couple is in love. I wish my husband would love me like that. And I still do. That would be a great way for my husband to love me on a given day. Hint, hint, honey, if you want to surprise me at a baseball game. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be loved and allowing others' actions toward their spouse to influence our equally loving actions towards our spouses. As a matter of fact, for a thriving long-term marriage, it's essential to practice loving actions daily. The problem occurs not when we desire loving actions, but when we idealize other couples as if their love were a bit more effortless than most. Did you idealize that couple that I read about in that video on romantic love? Did you wish you had something like they had? Would your opinions change? And I know who this couple is. Would your opinions change if you knew this husband had just left his wife and 3 young children for this woman? And that this marriage was the product of an affair? As a matter of fact, it was his 6th affair. Now, what do you think about their love? If you forgot, go back and listen to that video as I read it and think about what you were thinking about that couple. Does he love his new wife, or is he simply exhibiting momentary loving actions, as he likely did his first wife for a time? You see, as you can see now, loving feelings come and go proportionately with loving actions. This particular husband once loved his first wife and likely showed her his love too. But over time, as his loving actions decreased, so too did his loving feelings for her and hers for him. I am confident this man loves his new young wife much more frequently now than he will 10 years from now, when the love cocktail has long since dissipated and life, work, bills, kids, stepkids, ex-wives, and all the accompanying baggage begin to take up more of their attention. If he neglects his duty to love her daily through thoughtful, loving, wife-centered actions, then just as in his first marriage, and his valid marriage, I should say, her loving feelings for him will likewise dissipate. But look, I'm an optimist. People learn. I learned, and so can you. Love takes calories. You need to burn more than a few to get to super in your marriage. As such, in tomorrow's video, in our next chapter, we are going to redefine love. We will teach you then how to maintain that love, because then I'm going to be getting into the super couple formula. All right, what are your thoughts? I'm curious, have you burnt any calories trying to love your spouse? Have you just sat there with bad feelings and hoped that they change to good feelings? Or have you actually got up and done something? Have you made her coffee? Have you ironed his clothes? Have you done something for your spouse that you know that they would appreciate? Do something. Don't tell them why you're doing it. Just do something loving for them that you haven't done in years. And watch and see what happens. They might look at you like, see what happens to their feelings and see what happens to yours. Let me know what that is in the comments below. I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. Thanks for watching this Bacon Bit. And as always, remember to live your life sunny side up.